Hi, I'm John Graham, Executive Vice President of Solutions 360, and with me today is Torrence Henry. He's a special client in that he has implemented Q360 with three different companies, and is right in the middle of his third company where he's CEO of ETG Fire Group. I'd like to introduce you to Torrence Henry.
Hey, thank you for the introduction. I definitely want to take some time with you guys, answer whatever questions, and help people understand the true value of Solutions 360.
Thank you, Torrence. Let's get right into it.
Let me just start high level of from my perspective of why do I think that the Q360 solution is best for fire alarm integrators. Okay, so for a person like myself who's um, been known, if you will, as a fixer, right? Go into the business, figure out how to stabilize the business, how to structure it, and how to take it from where it is to a profitable position, right, for long-term sustainable growth. I think what I found is the biggest challenge that integrators have is everything is so fragmented and it's so difficult for them to really understand what goes where and how to find all the information to make the right business decisions. So, um, fire is not an easy business to run because there's so many moving parts, right? So, the more disciplined you are, the more the propensity for you to be successful is that much higher from my perspective. From my perspective, okay. And what Q360 does to me is it helps me be disciplined, and it helps me train the disciplines to the people that, for all intents and purposes, actually run the business, right? So, from a sales standpoint, the sales leaders, if you go out and you're like, hey, I'm trying to forecast my business, but if you have no visibility to that, how do you know if you're good or not? You don't, right? You can't train a sustainable process to a sales rep if you don't have visibility to what their forecast is, if you don't have visibility to what their closing ratio is, right? And then synergistically, you take that sales process and then you transition it over to the operation. Well, the operation, they can't really execute and manage their labor if they don't know what's coming. Right. So if you're going from an operational standpoint and you say, hey, I'm trying to plan my manpower, I'm trying to plan my labor. Hey, sales leader, what do you have coming? Right. And not just a blind, hey, I got $1 million on the street. Well, actually, I have $1 million on the street at 75% probability. So I feel really confident that that's coming. In addition, I know how much equipment is coming as well. So now we can start to forecast what our revenue is going to be if we're running on a cost to cost basis, right? A ton of integrators are not running on cost to cost. A ton of fire integrators are invoicing and saying, hey, I've earned revenue. That's not necessarily, from my perspective, the right way to drive revenue in the fire business. So now I take and I say, okay, ops guy, you took your whip, you took all your costs. How's that going to flow through to the P&L? What's the expectation? So you have some finance person saying, hey, so what's it going to look like in 3, 6, 30, 60, 90 days? Well, I don't know. If I'm running a business and I'm saying, okay, what changes do I make to alter the trajectory of how my business is going to end up at the end of the month or the end of the quarter? Well, with Q360, I can actually see my P&L from week to week if I become disciplined and I job cost in a timely manner, right? So time billing helps me get my labor costs in on a timely manner, right? Managing my purchasing and warehousing workflows help me get my costs, my material costs to the jobs in a timely manner, right? So now I really can look at my P&L on a week to week basis. So the biggest challenges we have is pivoting from, hey, we're headed down a bad path. Wait a minute, let's do this. Or hold on a second. Actually, we're headed down a good path. Let's keep going down that path versus waiting until what most fire alarm companies run into of, I don't know what I got until I'm 30, 45 days after the month and I've actually
Right.
closed it. And that's 30, 45 days. if they're lucky, if they're good, right? Some of them are 2, 3 months down the road before they can actually get financials, right?
Right.
So having that visibility literally at the touch of a finger, you know, almost real time is so beneficial to running a good business. And
Yeah.
I think that's what really makes people understand how to grow their business and drive their business. And then when you get to the CEO level, well, now I get to fly at 25,000 feet and say, hey, what's our business look like in 30, 60, 90 days? What's my cash flow look like in 30, 60, 90 days, right? I start to look at the dashboard. I start to use the one dashboard and the executive dashboards to really run the business from a analytical standpoint to drive behaviors and the decisions we make long term for running the business, right? So
Right.
when I talk about that synergy between sales, operations, and finance, I don't think there's a better way to really have a grasp on all the key aspects of the business to make the right decisions to run your business.
Right. And, you know, the big thing that you were just referring to as a CEO of the company is the level of confidence you have in that data, right? Every CEO gets data. It's a matter of how timely is it, how accurate is it, you know, and are there any loose ends to it? So that, you know, you're just describing that feedback loop, right? And we're talking about a forecasted profitability either by month or by week. So now you can sit there when a job does go off the rails or some timeline changes. You know, the biggest thing that you have, the biggest lever you have is your labor utilization. So now I go, okay, this job just slipped. Now I've got 40 hours of this type of labor and 60 hours of this type of labor that can be reallocated. You can save that month. So now instead of going, well, what happened last month? I'm going to say, wow, we just had this. This is what it did to my labor capacity. And now I can redeploy or do whatever and have those people generate revenue. So that whole thing, it really, you know, as you described that, it's really a big orchestra that gives everybody, you know, one version of the truth is what a lot of customers talk about. So that's pretty exciting because you know the system so well, and now you've been able to apply it in several different roles, three different companies, and you're being able to apply it, which really helps you with the change that companies go through, right? Which is the single biggest thing you were talking about, discipline. So why don't you talk about that a little bit as far as is because most organizations, you know, they're flying by the seat of their pants in the worst case scenario, and they're doing their best as far as what their spreadsheet says or disparate systems. How do you find that rollout of discipline so that a system like this really starts to give you benefits?
So I think what's important is you get the opportunity to really use the term I use, delegation of authority, right? You can put the right people in the right places to own different workflows. And now, if they're disciplined to manage their workflow flows up to the next person's workflow, right? So now you can start to put your accountability chart or your organizational chart in place to have the right people in the right seats to really run the business the right way. To your point, a lot of people they're flying by the seat of their pants, so they don't know. You might have the same person managing a project and doing purchasing. Well, here's a challenge: if that one person forgets something, then you're in trouble. Now it's time to go to the job site. Oh, we don't have equipment. Well, who's responsible for that? I don't know. You get to dial that in, and I think the leadership of an organization gets the opportunity to say, okay, what are the seats that we need to make sure that we have synergy throughout our business and we have accountability throughout our business, right? And then the one thing you guys said to me, and it resonated with me from the very first time, one of the very first things you should do is open your workflow, right? Manage your workflows. And if you manage your workflows, you have your fingers on the pulse, right? And the benefit of Q360, I think, for small to medium-sized companies is it really affords you the ability to run like a big company without all of the expenses of a big company because you have everything right there for you. I go back to my discipline, right? But you got to be disciplined to not allow people to go back to what's been comfortable and what they've been used to versus saying, hey, if you want to be successful, here's the right ways to start to run your business. The thing I love about Q360 is you guys don't tell us how to run the business. You give us the tools we need. You give us the perspective we need. of how to manage those tools. And then it's our responsibility to be disciplined enough to use the tools the right way to run the business, put the right people in the places to say, okay, based on how my business works, if I'm a single location business, right, it's pretty easy. I might be able to cross utilize some resources. If I'm a multiple location, as I am today, well, now I can have that visibility and really break everything down by branch, right? To manage my expenses by branch, to manage my corporate allocations, the entire deal. I can see it at a branch level, I can see it at a department level, I can see it at a company level, right? So I get to really dissect and manage my business at 30,000 feet and figure out exactly what I need. And I think that's a challenge of integrators, is not really knowing who they need and where they need those resources. So they end up putting people in seats that they really may not need. They just need to be able to look at the business differently. And I think the system affords them the ability to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that forecasting becomes a key component as far as, whether you need to be hiring, whether it's cyclical and you just need to line up subcontractors. It's giving you that visibility. Is this just lumpy? And or we can just outsource it, or do we actually are we growing the business, and how well is ops keeping up with sales and vice versa, right? So that's where that backlog burn rate type reports really become powerful.
Yeah, I
So
like what you said there. I like what you said there, right? Because I use the term of this is an orchestra all the time, right? And before you have a system, that orchestra sounds really, really bad, right? Because, everything is not flowing together. But once you have that system that ties everything together and you're communicating with each other on a timely manner, you really start to get good music, because the ops team, as you were, the sales team can bury the ops team if they don't know what's coming, right?
right.
And the ops team may not realize, hey, I might need 2 or 3 FTEs in 90 days if I'm not communicating with my sales team, right? And the accounting team may say, okay, you need 3 people, but how are you going to pay for that, right? AR says, I need you to go out and collect X amount of dollars so we can have the cash flow, right? So there's this synergistic relationship between the system that keeps you from outrunning yourself or putting yourself in a bad position so that you're running a bad business. And I think the ultimate goal of most integrators is to try to run a sustainably healthy business, right? What that looks like for each business is up to them, right? That's your cost structure, that's your revenue, that's the
Yep.
whole nine. But at the end of the day, you'll know what it is versus guessing what it is. And that's what I tell my
Exactly.
employees. When we go live in Q360, we're no longer going to use the words of, well, I think we're going to be here. My best guess is this. No, we're going to be good enough to know if we're disciplined enough to use the system the right way.
Yeah, and it gets everybody on the same page, right? It eliminates all the drama. All right, we underperformed that month or that quarter, and now there's finger pointing going on, because each and every management meeting, you're looking at the exact same data, right? And you're looking at it into the future, so you know where you're going. So now we can say, all right, this happened and this happened, which is just going on in business every single day. But now we have the information. This lever needs to be pushed this month. This one pulled the next month, and it's giving you that information so that you've got that predictability of revenue generation, as well as net profit is displayed everywhere in the system, so you can really grow a business with that information.
Absolutely. And I think as so for a person like myself who's 3 iterations in, right? When people first start, they're pretty much going to do everything out of the box, right? That's the suggestion, right? There's more than enough tools, more than enough reports for a person to use what's out of the box. I think as you start to grow in the system and you start to say, okay, now that I have my foundation and I understand the uniquenesses of my business, I may want to calculate something a different way, right? So then you get the opportunity to say, all right, I want to go and start to build my own reports, right? Where the system allows me to feed the analytical person inside myself to whatever level I want that to be, right? But even for me as a highly analytical person, I probably only created maybe 3 or 4 reports. And those were more around time off, things of that nature, some things that maybe aren't innate to the system, but the data came from the system. So it kept me as a person who loved Excel it kept me from having to export and go build Excel reports, right? So I no longer, and I'm an Excel junkie. I no longer am spending an absorbent amount of time building Excel reports to analyze data. I may pull the data out, put it in a pivot table just to see it differently, but I don't need to do that because the system will give me what I need. The dashboards give me the great visibility to run my business the right way. And if you want to go to the next level, you can put TVs up in your office, right? And have those, your service dashboards so you can see your calls. So everything can be front of mind. Your sales dashboards, being able to customize everything for each and every person. All my sales reps, their landing page, if you will, was their sales dashboard, right? So anything you need, it can do for you, right? And one would argue, people get tired of hearing me talk about it because it literally does everything I need. Like me coming to where I was, it was a non-negotiable to say, hey, the first thing you want me to do is fix your business. Okay, the first tool I need is an ERP system that does that for me, right? That's going to help me. Now, it's not going to be easy, but I think there's no better in two scenarios, right? Within the first 90 days of me taking over the business, we started the implementation of Q360. And one would say, well, Torrence, why would you do that, right? So you're already trying to analyze the business. Why would you be so disruptive? In my mind, if I'm going to be disruptive to the business, I'm going to be disruptive in the first year, right? And if you're trying to learn a business, there's no better way than to try to go to an ERP system that's going to force you to look at all the data in every aspect to make sure that you're cleaning your data. So if you really want to fix a business, this is a great way to do it because it's going to force you to look at your business differently than you ever have in the past. And then once you clean that data up and you put the data in the right way, now you're ready to roll. So you can gain traction much quicker by going through the implementation process and have long-term sustainable success with the system if you force yourself to go through the implementation and challenge yourself to really question your data and not put bad data in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Torrence, I've been at this a very long time, and I don't think I've ever articulated our value proposition nearly as well as you just have. And you actually have lived it, being three different companies, three different roles. And I really appreciate, everything you've shared with us today. It's exciting always for me to see a customer that actually leverages and understands the value of the system and really reaps the rewards of it and builds a better business for that. Do you have any concluding thoughts that you want to share with us today?
Yep, my concluding thoughts would be this, and I've said this time and time again, right? Um, the biggest challenge with transitioning to Q360 is people being stuck in their own ways, right? And if you want to change, you have to change, right? And you have to adapt the system. So the people that struggle with the system are the ones that are resistant to change. And what I would say to anybody who knows they need it, who knows they're struggling to have streamlined process and sustainable success, if you adopt the system and use the system the right way, it will work for you. It will make your business better. It will make you more profitable. Guaranteed.
That's awesome, Torrance. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and look forward to keeping in touch throughout your third implementation and following along the results for the next many years.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys and everything you do, and just continue to challenge yourselves to get the system better and better and better. You guys have done a phenomenal job, and I genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.